The novel The Virgin Suicides, which was written by author Jeffrey Eugenides, is about a group of boys that grow very fond of the Lisbon sisters, which are 5 young, blonde, and beautiful girls who live mysterious lives. It takes place in a middle-class suburban area in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, on the outskirts of a deteriorating city. The story focuses on the neighborhood boys' obsession that they develop with the sisters and what led each of the girls to take their own life. After the suicide attempt that was made by the first Lisbon daughter, Cecilia, the hospital psychiatrist, Dr. Horniker, encourages Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon to allow their daughters to interact with other boys. This causes the Lisbons to throw a chaperoned party in the comfort of their own home, one in which the girls and the neighborhood boys come together and get to know each other on a more personal level. Just when everything seems to be going well, Cecilia excuses herself from the party and literally takes another stab at her own death by plunging out her window onto the spikes of her fence that lay outside in her front yard. The whole neighborhood lay in wonder what would cause such a young girl, a 13-year-old girl, to end her life so soon. Months after her death, the sisters, Lux, Bonnie, Mary, and Therese, attend a school dance in which Lux loses her virginity to the only boy she ever truly loved, Trip Fontaine. Devastated when he leaves her after spending the night together, and without contacting her again, Lux returns home the next morning only to find her mother in her living room, brooding and stirring with anger. Her failure to return home on time the night before causes her mother to homeschool the girls and lock them in the house, forcing the girls to resort to a life of solitude and isolation from society. This punishment contributes to what catalyzed the deaths of the 4 remaining sisters. The following scene shows the deaths of Lux, Bonnie, Mary, and Therese, the 4 remaining Lisbon sisters. So the boys are invited over to the girls' home after receiving a letter instructing them to go over the night after.
Shit, it's them.
To think that only yesterday I was cheerful, bright and gay, looking forward to what wouldn't do the role I was about to play. But in my hour of need, I truly am indeed alone again, naturally.
Upon their arrival at the Lisbon house, they are greeted by Lux, who is sitting in her living room, smoking a cigarette.
Maybe we should not. We're here.
Come on in. I'll go wait in the car. You guys wait here for my sisters.
The boys anxiously explore the house and wait for the girls to appear before them. They go down to the basement, giggling and smiling uncontrollably.
These girls make me crazy. I could just feel one of them up just once.
But their happiness is disrupted at the sight of Bonnie Lisbon, hanging by the neck from the ceiling. They rush upstairs, passing by Mary's body that now lay dead on the floor, her head roasting in the oven.
We would never be sure about the sequence of events. We argue about it still. Therese, stuffed with sleeping pills, was gone by the time we got there. Lux was the last to go.
Between the book and the movie, there were very few insignificant differences, but as far as screen adaptations go, the director did the novel justice by staying true to the original ideas that the author had and maintained the overall surreal, haunting quality present in the film. A majority of the dialogue used in the script of the movie was taken straight from the text of the book. One of the only big differences in the plot of the book versus the plot of the movie was the death of Mary Lisbon. In the movie, we see that Mary commits suicide at the same time as her sisters. However, in the novel, she survives and stays alive for approximately a month until she ends her misery by overdosing on sleeping pills, as did her sister too. I personally think this cut was very effective because had Mary died when she was all by her lonesome, as opposed to being with her sisters, the plot would have dragged on and made it unnecessarily longer. And in the book, Mary is not one of the main Lisbon girls that the boys focus their attention on, as opposed to Cecilia and Lux, whom they seem to be mostly infatuated. The director's adaptation of the book is accurately comparable in respect to the setting. Sofia Coppola recreates the time and place of the story in the film, and the suicides of all 5 Lisbon girls remained in their own house, under the very roof they were raised. Situational irony is present in the scene, seeing as how the girls were born in their home, raised in it, and took their own lives in it. As the incidents occurred during the night, this adds to the somber feel of the scene and renders the director successful in matching the quality of Jeffrey Eugenides' novel. The setting was chosen to take place in their home because the author wanted to establish the fact that even in a small and quiet suburban area, where everything and everyone seems normal, horrible things can still happen. Instances of depression, isolation, and loneliness are all represented by the symbol that is a house. Throughout the scene, the director wisely chose not to play any music during the boys' visit to the Lisbon household. The silence present during the time the boys impatiently awaited the girls added suspense for viewers and left them wondering what was keeping the girls from making any sort of appearance and why they were taking so long. It also allowed audience members to see just how impactful the sisters were on the boys and proves the powers of teen lust. The sound effects used enhanced each sister's way of committing suicide, such as the rope swaying back and forth when Bonnie was hanging, the hums let out by the sound of the oven where Mary's head rested in, as well as the noise of the car running where Lux lay dead. The lack of actual music enabled the director to focus on the importance of the scene and disregard faint, mindless noise in the background that may have taken away from it. This decision was very effective as she emulated the scene's mood perfectly as a very morbid and tragic one. Overall, the selected actors for each of the roles were fairly good. Above all others, the individual that stood out the most for me was Lux, who was played by actor Kirsten Dunst, and I think she was definitely the best choice for the part. She portrayed Lux's character wonderfully as the young, wild, promiscuous teenage girl. Though each of the girls display similar physical qualities, they did not exemplify the way the girls were described in the novel. Aside from the fact that they were all young and blonde, the two casted for Bonnie and Mary, actors Chelsea Swain and AJ Cook, did not possess the beauty they had in the book. Having said that, Kirsten did in fact prove how Lux's character was supposed to stand out above the rest as the more beautiful one in the group of the Lisbon sisters. The neighborhood boys chosen were average, testosterone-driven teenage boys that reflected young males' physical attributes and the way they act when they are around girls. As for the costumes chosen, the clothes did match the era of the story really well. While the boys wore blue jeans, dress pants, and dress shirts, the girls display a sense of innocence as they flaunt their plain dresses and black dress shoes. The clothing was overall very simple and appropriate for the setting. Though they were not necessarily shown, the mental image of the props used to aid each girl's death was very powerful and challenged the audience to feel the pain of each tragic event only with the use of their imagination. The lighting in the motion picture helped the director focus her attention on the important components of the scene. Rather than drawing attention to insignificant detail in the house by using bright lights, the room is dark, gloomy, and sets a very mysterious atmosphere. The fact that each suicide is committed during the night emphasizes the surprise and lack of anticipation the boys had for it. Despite how in the novel, the way in which each girl takes her life is much more descriptive, the brief close-ups on specific body parts of the sisters proved to be striking enough. The view of Bonnie's legs dangling aimlessly from the ceiling, Mary's legs laying limp on the kitchen floor, and Lux's arm sticking out of the window of the car was much more powerful because it accentuated the difference in which the girls decided to kill themselves. The transition between Bonnie and Mary's suicide was very valuable because as the camera moved, it followed the boys up the stairs and led them to each girl, showing how they were scattered in different rooms and emphasizing the surprise that each boy felt with each girl's death. Both the novel and film of The Virgin Suicides connects to Carl Jung's psychoanalytic theory with respect to the idea of the conscious and unconscious mind. The fact that all 5 girls committed suicide reflected the impact their unconscious mind had on them. Growing up as they did in a Catholic family, raised with certain values and expectations, their behavior shows the effect of what it is like being born into a family that follows a strict set of rules and principles. The decisions the girls made branched from depression, which was found within each of their subconscious, in relation to the memories they had. Pertaining specifically to Lux, her experience with Trip devastated her and caused her to sleep with multiple men, trying to fill the void of her no longer existing relationship. The underlying issue she had to deal with is connected to her subconscious and part of why she took her own life. As for all of the Lisbon girls, an instance where their memory affected their decision to commit suicide would be Cecilia's death. Witnessing their sister impaled on the fence in front of their very own home was not only traumatic, but also influential in the sense that they saw killing themselves as an escape from the environment that they had to live in. At the time of its release, the film was rated R due to its strong thematic elements involving teenagers. The audience targeted was that of a mature nature, as the film includes explicit content not suitable for younger viewers. The genre of the film and the novel is a traditional coming-of-age and mystery type that focuses on the true disposition of the typical suburban American lifestyle that was present in that era at that time. It takes somewhat of an unusual approach towards the audience because it exposes the actual essence of the American home life at that time, one filled with despair, loneliness, and devastation. As a whole, the overall adaptation of Sofia Coppola's film The Virgin Suicides was very well done in comparison to Jeffrey Eugenides' novel. She stayed true to the main theme, which was tragedy, and blew audiences away with her recreation of the story. The author was trying to portray the fact that instances of depression are often ignored. Even though the signs are there, people tend to disregard them completely because they refuse to believe that they're actually happening, and they also don't know how to handle them. With respect to Cecilia's death, when the parents went to the psychiatrist and asked what they could do, and he suggested exposing them to an environment filled with boys, they tried that, yet Cecilia still was unhappy with her life and ended it. I would recommend this film to both males and females because it tackles an issue that affects both genders quite dramatically and exposes them to the environment that they're actually living in, enabling them to open their eyes and see things for how they really are.